and welcome to the Candidate Forum for McFarland Village Board. My name is Shannon Morrison, and I am honored to be your moderator today. I am the Communications Director for the Prairie Ridge Neighborhood Association located here in McFarland. The candidates running for the 3 vacant seats on the Village Board are Stephanie Brassington, Claire Bud Utter, Carrie Nelson, and Christopher St. Clair. This forum provides an opportunity for candidates to further their campaign by answering audience questions, as well as helping citizens make their choices for the spring election. The election this year will be Tuesday, April 6th. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. at the McFarland Municipal Center. Though due to the ongoing COVID pandemic, we are encouraging citizens to vote via absentee, preferably by mail, which is really easy. If you would like to vote via absentee, you have the option to do so until Friday, April 2nd. More information on how to vote via absentee can be found at myvote.wi.gov. You can also look at the village website, or you can call McFarland administrative offices. Today's forum will consist of a 2-minute opening statement from each of our candidates, 8 additional questions, followed by a 3-minute closing statement from each candidate. Each candidate will be allotted 2 minutes to answer their question. We will rotate on who answers the questions first, as well as change directions, so candidates will not answer after the same person each and every time. Additionally, before wrapping up with our closing statements, we will be opening up for audience questions. We have encouraged the public to submit their questions prior to this forum, but in the event that you would like to do so during the forum, please visit the website. You can see that at the bottom of your screen at www.mcfarland.wi.us/candidatesforums. The questions you should submit need to be issue-based and will be reviewed prior to being presented to the candidates. We will not accept questions that are targeted at any candidate in particular, are partisan in nature, vulgar, or inappropriate in any way. Though we do not expect this to run for longer than an hour and a half, to be fair and respect everyone's time, we will cap this forum at a maximum of 2 hours if needed. We will now begin with opening statements in the order in which the candidates are listed on the ballot. Stephanie Brassington, will you please begin with your opening statement?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Shannon, so much for doing this today. And thank you to Stephanie and her entire team at the Communications and Technology Department. Fabulous work and making this work for all of us. Like Shannon said, my name is Stephanie Brassington. I have been on the village board for the past 6 years. I have moved to McFarland as a young child in 1969. I went to school here. My children went to school here, and now I have 5 grandchildren in the school district. So needless to say, my McFarland has been my home for a very, very long time. I did move away a couple of years and came back because this is where my home is. In addition to being on the village board, I've also had experience during my 6 years of being on the CDA committee, the Communications and Technology Committee, Senior Outreach Committee, Public Utilities, DEI, Public Safety, and the Landmarks Committee. So I have a lot of experience in all of those areas. By day, I manage a generations title company in Madison, Wisconsin. So that's what I do with my daytime. So thank you very much.
Wonderful, Stephanie. Thank you so much. Claire Utter was unable to join us today. So Carrie, we'd like to continue with you.
Great. Thank you very much. I want to echo Stephanie's thanks to Shannon and Stephanie Miller. This is a new thing for me, and it's been easier for your help. So to introduce myself, I'm Carrie Nelson. I've lived in McFarland about 15 years. I am a librarian at the university and have had 2 kids come up through the schools here. Finally, my second daughter is graduating high school this year. So I have been, after moving here, I investigated getting involved in the village government a little bit, but then life took me to other things. And this summer, during the sort of the activity and protests around George Floyd's murder and the work that was done here in town, I got involved in some community activity around diversity, equity, and inclusivity. And that led me to be going to some board meetings and connecting me with more people around town. And I was encouraged to investigate joining the board. And honestly, the more I looked into it, the more exciting it sounds. That we have a sort of citizen group that helps shape the direction that we take the village is just really exciting. I feel like I have a lot to learn. It's nice to have so many good resources available, and I've been going back and watching old committee meetings. So I look forward to learning more and getting to know more people and getting involved. So thanks.
All right, and Chris St. Clair, we'd like to continue with your opening statement.
All right, thank you, Shannon. And again, I'll just continue to echo what everyone said is thank you so much for putting this on and giving us a forum. And thank you, Shannon, for donating your time as well. I'm newer to McFarland proper. I just moved into the village in April of 2019, but I lived in the Liberty Place development right across Sigilco Road for about 12 years prior to moving here. And my wife and I just built what we consider our forever home right off of Holscher Road. I've got 2 kids that have been in the school district since 4K. So I feel like I've been a McFarland resident for almost 15 years, even though technically I'm at 2 or coming up on 2 here. Since coming into the village, I've been really involved in helping to form one of the, actually the only neighborhood association where we've given residents kind of a voice here within the village and opened up some lines of communication with our village government as the village continues to expand on the east side. And so I really have 3 kind of primary running objectives or things that I want to help to accomplish in the village. And that just would be one, a thoughtful and planned approach to the growth of the village here on the east side as we continue to expand. The second would be continued and significant improvements to the 2-way communication between residents and the village government itself, whether that be through staff or committee structure or the board. And then lastly, a focus on diversity inclusion. That starts from the staff and the top of the village level on down through the committee structure, and then continuing on through the village as well. So thank you so much for having me, and I'm hopeful and looking forward. Thank you.
Wonderful. So thank you very much for everybody and all of our candidates in their opening statements. I'd like to begin with our questions. We do have a rotating order, as I mentioned in the beginning, and I will be going through each of the questions. Be mindful of your time. I will keep an eye on that clock to make sure we keep things going to respect everyone's time. The first question, Carrie Nelson, I'd like to begin with you. The question is, what are 2 or 3 strengths that the village should be proud of? And why exactly do you see these as strengths?
Sure, let's see. One thing that strikes me right away is just sort of the engagement and enthusiasm of the people who live here. And like I say, especially in the last few months, there is an amazing amount of wisdom and skills that are in our town. I feel like every time I get together with people, I learn something new. So I guess that the way to put that strength is just the people who live here. It's a great, so that's a strength. Another thing I think, a second one I would say just off the top of my head is the sort of natural resources. So our location, the beautiful access we have to the lakes, and it's easy to take for granted. But anytime someone comes to visit, they remind me of how lucky we are to have that. I think the other one that just comes to mind that I'll say quickly is the opportunity we have for growth. So I guess the people and the sort of nature are things long-standing, but it feels like we're also kind of at a pivotal point where, again, we are expanding. There's opportunity for growth. And I think that the strength that gives us is a way to sort of leverage those people and the natural resources to just, do great things, become a village, and kind of move ourselves into a direction that we want to go.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Carrie. Chris, next I'll come to you. What is it that you think are 2 to 3 strengths of the village that we should be proud of, and why do you see these as strengths?
Sure. So as I mentioned, my wife and I chose to build our forever home in McFarland after living in Viridian development that's technically in Madison for the 12 years prior. And one of the reasons why we chose McFarland, which is definitely a strength that the village has, is just the close-knit sense of community among the residents and the way that we all look out for one another. So I think that was heartwarming to us. And being UW grads, both of us, and having lived in Madison and not necessarily feeling that sense of community from Madison, but feeling it in McFarland was something that was incredibly important to us. And that's certainly a strength that we have as a village, and something that we should be trying to preserve and protect, as we go through and we grow, making sure that character remains. And the second thing that kept us here is, when we looked at raising our family and placing our kids somewhere, just the safety of the community and the schools here in McFarland are something that are we're very proud of as a community and as a village. And so that would be another strength that we can continue to leverage, is, just our schools, our safe community, and again, with what Carrie said around the growth piece of it is, if we can continue to leverage those strengths and really preserve and protect those, the sky's the limit in terms of what we can do and what we can accomplish as a village. And so I'm, really excited at this point in time to be trying to get involved. Thank you, Shannon.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. And Stephanie Brassington, I'd like to conclude this question with you. What are the 2 or 3 strengths that the village should be proud of, and why do you see these as strengths?
Okay, well, first of all, I think that that the number one strength that I've had the opportunity to experience in the last 6 years is our staff. The village staff is dedicated, committed. They work endless hours. We need to be so thankful as a village that we have those types of people working in the village for us, for all of us. I also agree with Chris and Carrie, community pride, community involvement, where we live, all of the dynamics or logistics of where we live, all of those are very positive strengths, as well as the school district being a great place for our children, very dedicated teachers, and a good family our families that are involved in our schools.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Stephanie. I'd like to go to question number 2. Carrie, we had started with you before, so we're going to start with Chris this time. What is something that the village does not have that you think that it would benefit from, and how would you go about procuring it?
That's a really good question. I feel like as a village, we have an opportunity here going forward with the bike path that we just got that connects us to Madison and is going to be continuing into McFarland to really present the village in a new light. And I think it's something that we've already started to do, and there are some projects that are going on. And so along with that, as we're continuing to do that, I think the biggest thing that we don't have right now is a sense from the residents, and this came up multiple times last year, that they're involved in the planning process as new things start to come to the village. And so, you know, we had an opportunity in 2020 where we put in a building and expanded the McDaniels Park and kind of put a better face on that entrance to the village. And the way it was marketed, the way it was talked about, you had all local residents that were in strong opposition to this because they didn't feel like they were a part of it. And that's something I think that we need to correct. And it's something that I've already started to work on just as a resident here by, you know, forming a neighborhood association, working with our staff. And to Stephanie's point, we do have a good staff. They're good people that are trying to make things better. And so I think that that's what's lacking. And I think it starts at the staff level. And I think some of the changes from a communication standpoint have already started. Thank you.
Stephanie, let's go to you. What is something that the village does not have that it would benefit from, and how would you go about procuring it?
I would say number one, to me, I think we need a community center. I think what we've done so far to get us to that point is what, you know, we've surveys and questions and community meetings and doing whatever we can to get that to move forward. I think we're in a really good place, and I hope that that does happen in the near future. I also think that what's been happening with the special needs park and getting, I have 2 special needs kids in my home, and they may not be able to benefit from that as they might be too old, but by the time it's built. But I think that's something that we need to have in our community, and I think that would be a good family park to have. And I think that we just need to continue on with our work in the committee level and the village board and the citizen support of that event. I also think I am also excited, and again, I'm kind of more speaking of what I'm currently working on, is I also think that with our work in the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, I think we can, I'm hoping that we have success with that as well, that spreads throughout our staff and our government and our committees and our community. And I think that the more that we do with diversity, equity, and inclusion, the better we'll be as a community. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so very much, Stephanie. All right. We'll move on to question number 3. Stephanie, I'd like to begin with you on this question.
Shannon?
Yes. Oh, I'm so sorry, Carrie.
No
I'm sorry. I forgot that I'm working with a modified list here. Carrie, we'll go to you. So what is something that the village does not have that it would benefit from, and how would you go about procuring it?
Sure. So I actually appreciate and echo really what Chris and Stephanie said. I think my first thought was, you know, some mechanism for making it easier for residents to contribute to decision making. So I'm kind of excited that Chris is on board with that idea, and I think he and I may have both been a little bit motivated by that to run. But something a little bit different, it's related to some stuff Stephanie said, is I think when I look at where we want to go and our opportunities for growth, I think it would be great, and I don't know if I have a specific thing in mind, if we could have some more visible manifestations of being welcoming, especially to diverse people. If we're going to grow in the direction we want to go, I think we need to be clearly welcoming. And I think we are in many ways very welcoming. I would say for most people, it's not that we're not welcoming, but I think there are people who could come here and contribute who, if they just on first blush, are not going to know that the village is for them. And so I don't know what that's going to look like. I'm excited to see how the new DEI subcommittee could help make that happen. But I think just an obvious and visible sense of welcoming to people who maybe didn't grow up here.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much again for your thoughts on that question, Carrie. Now we will move on to question number 3. Stephanie, I'm going to begin with you, and I'm also going to preface this by saying, Stephanie, you're going to be first for both this question and the next question, so I can get us back on with my script so I don't get lost again. If elected, how will you help to ensure racial and social justice within the community of McFarland? Stephanie, I'll begin with you.
Okay, thank you. I think that we're at a good place we're at a good start, I should say, with our DEI committee. And I think that I have always thought that the beginning start should be education, some sort of education we as a committee can go through, that we can get educated, we can learn from other people's experiences, other communities that are making this happen. I think there's a lot of resources out there. So first of all, I think we need to tap into those resources and make sure that that's a part of our beginning. I also think it's important as the committee that we set goals and goals that are very specific to, I know the one thing that's kind of been a topic right now is, changing the job descriptions, changing, how that's listed and including more diverse conversations in that. I also think that getting a community involved and getting the community to be a part of that growth and spreading that throughout the whole village is a good way to get started. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Carrie, I'd like to come to you with this question. If elected, how will you help to ensure racial and social justice within the community of McFarland?
So I agree partly with what Stephanie emphasized, which is I think that the first priority is education and training. I think we kind of urgently need to get all of ourselves, as many, certainly village board members, committee members, and staff need to, spend some investments in understanding the issues that people face, particularly because we don't have a lot of diversity in the community right now. It's going to take work to understand how to get where we want to go. And I think it's also, and I'd like to see us also incorporate that kind of training in an ongoing way. So that I think is the first thing. Once we've started doing that, a lot of things I suspect will open up. I think, welcome suggestions from people on staff and residents, but of things we can be doing differently. Again, like talking about some visible manifestations of being welcoming and inclusive. I think it sounds like there's, some landmark opportunities. I think we're talking in the annual plan about doing some history celebrations, and I think it would be important to be inclusive in the development of those, which to me means bringing people to help plan those events. Who can help us do it right, and who in an inclusive way. There are art projects planned. So just making sure everything we do, especially things that are very visible, are developed in an inclusive way and demonstrate that we are an inclusive place.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Carrie. Chris, I'd like to move on to you with this question. If elected, how will you help to ensure racial and social justice within the community of McFarland?
Yeah, I think I agree with Carrie and with Stephanie too, that we have made some initial steps. I apologize if my internet connection is not cooperating. It doesn't look like it is. But we've got the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee formed. So I think it starts with really defining roles for our committees and making sure that we have a defined role. And I think to what Carrie said, education is the start. And it starts with our staff. It starts with our committees themselves. I can't tell you how many plan commission meetings that I've sat in on, and my wife is sitting next to me and she looks at the screen and she's like, are there any females on this committee? And the answer is no, there aren't. And so when you talk about presenting something where people feel welcome, it certainly was an unwelcome feeling for my wife to be involved in our committees. And so if we're not doing our job as a village to ensure that we have diversity and inclusion at the staff and at the committee level, then how can we ensure that we're doing that down below that as we look to the village itself? And so I think it starts there. And I think that we are starting to make some steps. And to Carrie's point, we are 96% white, according to the census. So we need help. We need to involve people who know what they're doing to help us get there, because we're not diverse to begin with. And so education is going to be a huge part of that. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so very much, Chris. I'd like to move on to question number 4. Question number 4, Stephanie, I will be starting with you here. What village committees have you served on? What have you learned from this experience? And are there any committees that you hope to serve on going forward into the future?
Good question. I actually have had the opportunity to be on several committees: CDA, Common Text, Senior Outreach, Utility, Public Safety, DEI, and the Landmarks Committee. And I have, what I've learned from that is just how to work collaboratively, how to listen, how to understand other people's ideas and thoughts, and try and embrace some of those as well. I really enjoy my committee work and the committee things that we do, and I learned how that structure starts and how it gets back to the village board and how that works. So it's I see the importance of the committees and the committee work and moving things forward in the village. I would serve on any committee that was assigned to me. So I enjoy all the committee work that I do, and I would be willing to do anything that would the village needs.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Carrie, I'm actually going to go to you next with this question. What village committees have you served on? What have you learned from these experiences interacting with these committees? And are there any committees that you would like to serve on in the future?
Sure. So I am currently on the new DEI subcommittee, and I can talk about that. But I have a thought that one thing I learned was a committee I didn't get on, which was maybe 8 or 10 years ago. I volunteered. I responded to a call for people to join the library board, and followed the process, but never heard back. So unfortunately at the time, that I think I kind of learned that I didn't feel like I was welcome or needed, and also it made me feel like, I guess I don't know how to do this because I don't know how to get on this board. And that's a lesson that I am really expecting to bring to my work is I just don't want that to happen anywhere else. And also I think we need greater transparency into committee assignments and volunteering. But on the DEI subcommittee, I've been learning a lot. I've actually, especially right now, because we're sort of a rather new committee, the processes, how agendas are currently being developed for committee work, sort of how meetings are run. And I look forward to more of that. And I learn a lot actually just from watching old meetings online on the cable channel. For the future committees I'd like to be on, I think sort of like Stephanie says, where I'm needed, and also I think where I could best round out the people who are already on it. So for example, I'm a librarian, but we have a librarian on the library board. So it may make more sense to, let's get a librarian on, the planning committee. So again, like I'd like, in the way that Chris kind of mentioned too, let's get some diversity in our different committees. Let's get people with different backgrounds in the right place. So that's what would motivate me on my committee assignment.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Chris, I'd like to move to you with this question. What village committees have you served on? What have you learned from this experience? And are there any committees that you would hope to serve on in the future?
Yeah, I'm going to start my clock and then pause and make sure my internet connection is good. Okay, it looks okay. I currently serve, as I mentioned, I officially moved to the village in 2019. So I currently serve on both the personnel and the finance committees. And that just draws from my experience in education and my background as a bank manager and a leader. And, what I've learned from that experience is, to Stephanie's point, we have a team of really dedicated staff members. Stephanie Brassington's point, Stephanie Miller, the IT director, is here today putting this on for us. And so, and I've gotten a chance to get involved in seeing on how some of the processes work. We're doing work on the personnel committee to rewrite some job descriptions. I know Stephanie brought that up already as we look to hire a new police chief or fire chief. Apologize. But where would I like to serve in the future? I've got history as a manager and a leader of people. And so I always want to put myself right at the forefront of the issues that I think are most pressing to the village. And so, as I mentioned, commission would be a huge one for me because the village is looking to expand and I want to be involved in that. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee is critically important as we move forward in defining the role, and that would be another one I would like to be on. But I will go wherever I'm asked and volunteer my time to whatever cause that I'm needed in. But those would be the two committees right at the forefront. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. We'll move on to our next question. Chris, I'd like to start with you for this question. How would you describe your leadership style? And what do you do to navigate differentiating opinions?
Yeah. My leadership style is one of support. And so I like to make sure from a leadership position that we all have the tools to be able to make, do things the right way and to be successful in our positions. And so, I do a lot of root cause analysis and digging in, and I really help to promote and support and develop my team and my people. And that's something I think I can bring to the village as well. What do I do to navigate differentiating opinions? That's where progress is made. Like, I welcome those. When we have, a diverse input and you're getting multiple opinions from different sides of the angle, they are going to differentiate, but that's where the progress is made. So I would welcome the opportunity to receive differentiating opinions so that we can progress forward with things. And so that would be, my leadership style and for differentiating opinions. I think everybody deserves to have that voice. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. Stephanie, I'd like to come to you with this question. How would you describe your leadership style, and what do you do to navigate differentiating opinions?
Thank you. I believe that I think listening is important, and I think that when I'm thinking in a perspective of being on the board, listening to everyone's opinion, listening to what everybody's thoughts are, and formulating, just in my mind, what's everybody thinking, what is everybody's needs, and trying to come out in the end. And especially if there's differentiating opinions, I try to somewhat be the voice of reason, or sometimes to just say, let's bring it back to what the actual question is, what the actual issue is, or trying to keep things back and just kind of pointing out of what the real issue is and how can we move forward, or a good compromise. So I think listening, compromising, communicating, all those are leadership skills, and I think just learning how to work together.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Carrie, I'd like to round out this question by bringing it to you. How would you describe your leadership style, and what do you do to navigate differentiating opinions?
Sure. So I think a lot my leadership skills have really been developed in my work at the library. So the university library system is big, and we serve, you know, the entire campus. In my current role in particular, I'm a director of scholarly communication and have one staff person, but all of the, you know, the libraries all work on this topic. And so I spend a lot of my time, the way I lead people has to be by persuading them and motivating them, because otherwise they don't have to pay attention to me. So I definitely find it, like, I think that I've sort of honed over time the skill of bringing stakeholders together, doing that listening that was mentioned before, understanding people's goals and perspectives, and then trying to synthesize that into something that we can articulate as a concrete shared goal. And then all the rest of the decisions that we have to get to when we have differentiating opinions, we can remind ourselves, well, you know, this is better for this person's point of view or this person's preferences. What's going to actually get us to the thing we know we all want? Like for our village, we can be saying, you know, which of these, you know, we can look at the mission. We can say, how does this growth get us to be the kind of village we've decided we want to be? Or, you know, so bringing those conversations back, kind of like Stephanie mentioned too, just reminding people of the things that we have in common, I think helps both with differentiating opinions and with leading people.
Thank you so much, Carrie. I'd like to move on to our question number 6. We're moving right along here. Carrie, actually, I'd like to begin this question with you. What is your vision for community and economic development? What kinds of land use, development plans, or areas would you like to see the village focus on in the future?
It's a good question, and probably something I feel, I mean, maybe this is a good thing, actually. I don't have strong preconceived ideas for what direction this needs to go. Partly, you know, just because I have learning to do, but I think it would incline me to work really hard to get input from again, all the stakeholders, all the people who live here. Where do we want to grow and how? I think if there, so my activity on the board in that space would be very driven by sort of what I'm hearing from the community. I think if there were a sort of value or principle I would bring, it would be some amounts of conservation, right? So as we're growing and building and developing, I would be a voice for just ensuring that we do it smart, that we do it sustainably, and that we protect, you know, the resources that we have.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Stephanie, I'd like to come to you with this question now. What is your vision for community and economic development? What kind of land uses, development plans, or areas would you like to see the village focus on going into the future?
Okay, first of all, I think it's important to maintain what we have. So I think it's important to make sure that we are encouraging our businesses to stay here. We're encouraging they're meeting their needs. If you know, they have needs in our community, I think that we're doing what we can to make sure that we don't lose what we already have. I also think that in the East Side development, as things move forward, you know, trying to bring in and promote a diverse area and bringing in a mix of housing and maybe some sort of, you know, retail space, something to bring more to the village other than just housing or apartments. I also am excited to see what will happen with the community park. I think that will be very exciting as that grows and that becomes a useful space for us. So that's kind of, I think.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And then Chris, I'd like to bring this question to you as well. What is your vision of community and economic development? What kinds of land uses, development plans, or areas would you like to see the village focus on going into the future?
Yeah. Hopefully I'm good. Okay, it looks like it. So the biggest thing right now is our village is working off of a comprehensive plan that was designed and implemented back in the early 2000s, and then essentially just ratified again in 2017. And we have an incredibly different landscape today than we had back then. And so first and foremost, I mentioned a thoughtful and planned approach as we continue to expand. And so first and foremost, I would like to address that and make sure that we seek input and work with our community and development director, Andrew Bremer, to make sure that we have a good plan in place as we keep moving forward, and that we're not just spot zoning or putting things in as we go, and that we have a good plan to go back on. As far as type of land uses and things I'd like to see in the future, again, I think it goes back to what makes us marketable and some of the things that are coming forward. So, this bike path and just health and wellness and activity through the village, I think is an amazing thing that we can leverage. And the fact that it's continuing on to Stoughton, you can bike anywhere from McFarland right now, just based on the connectivity to the paths. And so I think that's a really cool thing, incorporating the parks. The village has a parkland thing built into as we move forward to ensure that we maintain a level of green space and conservation of green space as we move forward. So I think all of those things are important. And again, that new community park that we're building is going to kind of create a second hub here in the village all the way out on that east side. So that would be what I would like to see.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'd like to move on to our next question as we're rounding out our planned questions. The question is, and Chris, I'm going to be starting with you this time. What items or policies, or departments would you like to prioritize in the next budget?
Thank you, Shannon. Again, it goes right back to what I said. I think we need to bring in some consultants and look at two specific areas that are critically important as we move forward. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. We need help. We are not a diverse village. So if we're looking to implement these policies, we need to bring in outside help to help us get there. And so that definitely needs to continue to be a priority as we move forward. And then, over the course of the next 5 years, we're putting in a safety building off of Highway MN, and we've got more residential developments that are already planned going out east. We have the community park involved. And so I think as we look forward, planning and making sure that we have a solid plan on how we're going to support those buildings and what's going to go around them, that would be where I would like to see us continue to place our resources at this point in time. You also have the community center. I think once the safety building is constructed to really buttress our downtown and make it a place where we can gather as a community, I think is important. And so I guess in that order, those would be kind of the three areas that I would like to see us leverage our resources and kind of move things forward. So.
Thank you so much, Chris. Carrie, I'd like to move to you with this question. What items, policies, or departments would you like to prioritize in the next budget?
Yeah, so I do feel like I would want to say that I still am coming to know all of the things that we're, spending money on. So I'm not, before I would push too hard for any of these priorities that I have, I would also want to make sure that that the resources weren't needed somewhere else that I don't know about yet. But I think I would like to see us invest in supporting staff, in understanding the staff needs a little bit. I was surprised to understand that we don't have a person who focuses on HR solely. We're relying on our our administrator really to have to do that all by himself, and that just feels like a really big job. And I think having staff have the support they need and the resources they need and the trainings, access to those kinds of things, it just feels like it'll be a great place to start. And I hope we can do that. Another thing is I'm interested in exploring ways to invest in outreach to the community. Like I miss the McFarland Family Festival, but this year. But how do we leverage things like that to get people more involved? I'm wondering if there aren't some, even small scale activities we could be doing to bring high school students into committee work, things like that. There was one other idea. Oh, and yes, and again, the kinds of things I was talking about. If we need to spend money to demonstrate that we're a welcoming and inclusive community, I would also want to invest in that too. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Carrie. Stephanie, I'd like to move to you to answer this question. What items, policies, or departments would you like to prioritize in the next budget?
I would say that the most important thing that I always look at when we go through the budgets in the fall is making sure, if there, what are the staff needs? What staff, do we need additional staff? Is there things that are, big things like that we need to be aware of? So staff is important. I also believe that what we have to prioritize the diversity, equity, inclusion piece of that. And what do we need for that training, not only just for the committee itself, but maybe going forward, do we need to put some money aside so that there is additional training, additional staff training, additional community outreach options, additional things that we can do to make sure that that's a continuing conversation in McFarland. I know that we, the public safety building, maybe could start hopefully this year yet. That's going to be a huge expense to us, but also still keeping our eye on what could happen, years to come, like the community center, things like that, making sure that we're ready and prepared for when, on a budget perspective of when we're ready to make those moves.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. To round out and finish our planned questions here, I'd like to ask, what steps will you be willing to create? What steps would you be willing to take to create a collaborative working environment with village staff? Carrie, I'd like to begin this question with you.
Sure, that's interesting. I mean, it seems very important. I'm trying to think of specific concrete steps. I mean, I think coming in new, it would certainly be to find out from colleagues and staff what things have been done in the past, how to leverage the stuff that's already working. I personally want to understand the jobs that people are doing better and would probably, welcome information about what people's jobs are, so that if staff wanted to send me, information about what kind of their, a link to the association of, police chiefs, so that I can understand the kind of pressures and issues that they're dealing with. I would certainly be, recognizing their expertise. So I think that they would not feel undue pressure from me to be, trying to do jobs for them. That wouldn't happen. And maybe I wonder too about looking at other villages, probably villages, who maybe are known for having good connections between their boards and staff, and maybe finding out if they have certain practices that have been successful, and try that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Carrie. Stephanie, I'd like to move to you next with this question. What steps will you take to create a collaborative working environment with village staff?
One of the things that I like the best of what we do, and we don't do a lot of it, but I would like to encourage that we do more of it, is joint committee meetings where the village board actually meets with the entire board of whatever committee it may be. And I think that's a good way for us all to work together to really understand what each committee is, what their mission is, what their goals are doing. Are they on are we on the same path and the same page that they are? I think that's a good way to work together as a community and have those group committee meetings. It's one thing to go ahead and, take your time to go online and watch a committee meeting, but I think it's good for us to have, face-to-face virtually, to actually talk to each other. So having that is there. I also think from a staff level, it's important to make sure that you're available and communicating with staff, just to kind of make sure that there isn't anything that I'm missing. So I feel like sometimes I haven't been really strong in that suit, but I think that's something I want to move forward. I want to be able to communicate more with staff.
Stephanie, thank you so much for your answer. Chris, I'd like to go to you with this question. What steps will you take to create a collaborative working environment with the village staff?
Yeah, I think looking back over the course of the last, 9 months or so since June, I live on Holscher Road right across from the two major developments that are going in. And we're working across multiple committees with the village board, and then specifically with staff member Andrew Bremer, the community economic and development director, and just getting a collaborative approach to try and move things forward on that, I think has given me some good experience here. And I think, it starts with having well thought and well planned committees that have objectives and that have a purpose that's clearly defined. And then also with the staff, to Carrie's point, we rely on our village administrator to probably do too much. And so making sure that those roles are not just clearly defined, but also that there's a proper scope of responsibility for our staff that makes sense, so that they are able to be more collaborative and work on multiple projects and bring things forward. And, and then to what Stephanie said as well, having the ability where our board and our committees all do, a joint meeting, so that we can talk through some of the major objectives in the village, and so that everybody gets a chance to be a part of seeing that clear vision as we move forward. So I think all of those things are important.
All right, Chris, thank you so much for your answer. And I'd like to thank Carrie and Stephanie as well. This actually concludes our prepared questions for this forum. At this time, I'd like to continue with any additional audience submitted questions. Again, we have encouraged the public to submit their questions to this forum, but we would like to, in the event that you would like to continue and do so now, please visit our website. It's at www.mcfarland.wi.us/candidates-forums. Please note both candidate and forum are plural, so we want to make sure you get all those letters in there. You can click on submit a question to the candidates. It's a link. And then we want to make sure that these questions are issue-based. They will be reviewed before they are posed to our various candidates. We will not accept any questions that are targeted towards any particular candidate, are partisan in nature, vulgar, or inappropriate in any way. To begin with our audience questions, please humor me as I go to my alternate forum as we're getting things live here. I have our first question, and Stephanie, I'd like to begin with you with this question to maintain our order here. The question is, fire and EMS services have historically been supported by community members, and many communities are facing a shortage of EMTs and firefighters. How would you ensure that our community has adequate staffing when EMTs and firefighters are getting more and more difficult to recruit?
I would say that I would have to talk to Chief Dennis and the EMTs and fire departments to find out more details as to why that's challenging to fill. What can we do? Work with them collaboratively to, what ideas they may have to encourage growth in those areas, or volunteerism, whatever we can do. I guess I would research with them what they may think the problem is, and then do some community outreach if we need to try and get to the bottom of that.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Carrie, I'd like to go to you with that same question. I would repeat it. I'll get straight to the question part of this. How would you ensure that our community has adequate staffing when EMTs and firefighters are getting more and more difficult to recruit?
Yeah, I have recently been learning about this, and it sounds concerning. And again, like Stephanie said, I think the place to start is with staff and with our chief, who will have a better sense of the landscape. I can imagine it being worth investing in, whether surveys or understanding, bringing in someone to help us it might be that important. And other than that, I imagine, trying to make the jobs here more attractive. So how can we make it better to work here than in the village across the way? I mean, it's that such a degree of scarcity, or possibly collaborate with other villages. I mean, I think it sounds like the kind of thing that might take some real creative problem solving. So, and to the extent that it's a statewide issue, I imagine there will be, investigations and things we can participate in to try and get at that and fix it.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Chris, I'd like to go to you with this question. How would you ensure that our community has adequate staffing for EMTs and firefighters as they are getting more and more difficult to recruit?
Yeah, I think recruiting and development can be painted more with a broad brush. We talked about the strength of our village and our community and the knowledge and wealth of individuals that we have. But I don't know that we have any programs in place to develop our future staff members, to develop our future village board members, to develop our leaders inside of the village, much less our fire and EMT staff. And so I think what we need is to really pull on and get our young people inside of the community more invested in taking on more roles within the village. And that starts with some programs, and that's definitely something our diversity, equity, and inclusion can help to accomplish. And just as we look forward and kind of revamping some of our committee structures, I think this is something that we can also attack and address that way. To Stephanie and Carrie's points, absolutely. You want to get involved and see what are other municipalities doing well. How can we incorporate some of those things into our village? What's feasible, what's not? What do our current leaders in those positions feel can help us to address this gap? And we want to bring in as many opinions, as much information as we can, and then start to implement some things going forward. And so we can certainly help to solve for that today, but also set up a program where this doesn't create a new problem in 5 years, 7 years down the road, if we've created some programs to kind of help keep this sustainable moving forward.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chris. I do have another question that's been submitted from our panel here. Carrie, I'm going to begin with you with this question. I'll read the question and then give you a moment so you can formulate your answer. Should the village pursue further geographic expansion through annexation or other means? If so, where should growth occur and on what timeline?
So I feel like I need more information before I could answer that question specifically. From what I have learned, it makes sense for us to expand under certain circumstances. So I think, at least to the extent that I can answer this specifically, including where and on what timeline, I don't know enough to think that we need to be pushing for this and making it a really high priority. So I would need to be getting new information for me to know that that's the case. And then if there is information that would lead that to be important, I would want to really rely on expertise of people who know the implications of that kind of annexation. I imagine they're huge and significant. So it sounds like if it's called for, we should do it. I don't think there's, I understand it has been successful in the past and useful. And if we do it, the timeline and where should just be informed by the experts. That wouldn't be me.
Okay, can I ask one follow-up question with regard to that? What information do you think would be pertinent in making that decision?
Well, I think impact, particularly, I guess, impact on the residents in the areas that are being considered, impact on our budget. So I imagine there's both costs and benefits, financial, monetary costs and benefits. So understanding where that fits in. And then the third thing that comes to mind is just how an annexation would relate to our other kinds of growth plans. Like, is it appropriate based on what else we have going on, and where else we need to invest? Is it more important to, direct those dollars somewhere, where we already are? So those are a couple thoughts that come to mind.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Chris, I'd like to move to you with this question. Should the village pursue further geographic expansion through annexation or other means? And if so, where should growth occur and on what timeline?
Yeah, I think my experience over the course of the last 9 months has really helped to prepare me for this going forward. And I mentioned this a couple of other times as we went through, of just a thoughtful and a planned approach to continued expansion. Yes, we are going to expand, the village is. So should we be pursuing further geographic expansion? Well, we need to look at our comprehensive plan to determine, is this something that's going to make sense? And so first and foremost, we need to address that. As we, added, some condos on Holscher Road, and then we're looking at exploring adding a large apartment building on Holscher Road. Some of the questions that came up were public safety. There was a staffing study done recently that said that we were already at capacity for fire and emergency staff in McFarland. So if we continue to expand, if we're not looking at that infrastructure, we could present problems there. Public works needs to be incorporated as well to look at, do we need to put in street lights? How do we, continue to expand the roads out there? What type of resources, sewer, things like that, do we need to incorporate? So this decision is way more complex than what can be addressed, in 2 minutes. But I think that thoughtful and planned approach as we continue to expand is important. And then also, again, we need to look at the strengths of our village and make sure that that character is maintained as we expand. So that would be my answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. And Stephanie, I'd like to bring this question to you as well. Should the village pursue further geographic expansion through annexation or other means? And if so, where should this growth occur and on what timeline?
First of all, Chris, your answer was fantastic. So I appreciate that. I think that we have the East Side growth happening right now, and I think that's something that we have to continue to focus on right now. I'm kind of struggling with the word pursue. I don't know that we're at the time right now to pursue that. However, I think that we are at a time where we should be aware if anything's changing or happening or anything that would be, just as far as future planning. I think that being aware and just finding out what's out there, I think would be important to continue to do that, even though maybe now wouldn't be the time to annex additional areas. But I think dealing with what we have right now, maintaining what we have, and working on the East Side expansion, and just kind of keeping our eyes open and aware of what's in the future.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. So I want to thank all of our candidates, first of all, for all of their participation in this open forum. And I also want to thank the community for being involved and engaging in this as well. We will now wrap up this forum by allowing the candidates to end with their closing statements. Each candidate will have a maximum of 3 minutes to give their closing statement. Like the opening statements, we are going to go in the order of the ballot placement. Stephanie, I'd like to begin with you, and I turn it over to you.
Thank you. Again, thank you very much to you, Shannon, and to the Stephanie and her team at the community development, communications and technology. Um, I am happy to be on the board. I am excited that I've been on the board for 6 years. I'm looking forward to a couple more years in that. I have looking forward to the safety building coming, and the special needs park, and all that we can do with the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives throughout our community, our departments, our staff, and our committees. I feel like I am a good listener and communicate effectively. I articulate my thoughts and ideas appropriately, and I'm looking forward to the future. And again, thank you, and please vote for me April 6th. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Carrie, I'd like to turn it over to you, Carrie Nelson, for your closing statement.
Thank you very much. Agree. And again, thanks for the venue and all the work that went into getting us here. I think I want to close by focusing, I guess I'll first just summarize my priorities as I'm approaching this work. And it would be that I would be looking first for anything we can be doing. Again, I'm reiterating some of what I have said, but I want McFarland to be a welcoming and inclusive place. I think we can be known for that. I think it's a vision. I imagine us in 10 years having a reputation for doing this right, for looking, getting our act together in this space, and having, other villages look to us as a model. And so I'm so excited about that. I am looking forward to trying to help make that happen. The other really high priority for me is to just make sure that all the village residents understand that this is their village, it's our village. I don't want anyone to have the experience of thinking, maybe I care about this thing, but I'm not sure how to do anything about it. In all of my, in some of my bumps on the road of trying to get involved in the village, I am confident from all of the, connections I do now have, that the people on the board and the staff and the residents who are involved really do want our input. They really want us to be involved. So we just need to find the ways to make that really easy for everyone in the village. And I think, I mentioned at the beginning that our people are such a big strength for us. If we can leverage that strength by bringing, the right people to conversations about our planning and about what kind of village we want to be, we can be amazing. So I hope to be participating in that. Whether or not I'm on the board, I know I'm going to be, at board meetings. I'm going to be at committee meetings that make sense. I'm going to be trying to bring my friends. I'm going to be trying to encourage people to come. The more we can get, the more people that we can get involved in shaping the direction we go, the better our future is going to be. So I hope I can be a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carrie. And then Chris St. Clair, I turn it over to you for your final comments.
Sure. To Stephanie and Shannon for putting this on. Thank you, Stephanie Brassington and Carrie Nelson for devoting your time and energy to running, and Stephanie for 6 years of service on the village board already, and all the committees you guys serve on. Again, the main 10 platform would be a thoughtful and planned expansion on the east side, making sure that we're doing so in a thoughtful and planned manner, making sure that we improve our two-way communication between the village and the residents so that the residents feel like they have a voice and that they are being heard, myself included, right? And then lastly, that we kind of look at our diversity and inclusion from a top-down standpoint. And really we start with our village staff, our committees, and we really kind of promote and develop something that's going to be able to continue going forward. Those are the main areas that I want to be able to have an impact on. I understand that, the village trustee, the village board positions are 2-year stays, right? So my time, should you guys choose to vote for me and elect me, is very temporary. Understanding that as we start to implement and start to grow and make some of these changes, that we want to make sure that we do so in a way that's sustainable, so that any impact that I'm able to have is going to be able to be continued, and we can continue to move things forward, long after my time on the board. I'm young. Like I said, my wife and I built a forever home here. I intend to be here for a long time. I'd like to be involved in whatever capacity I can. I will continue to be involved whether I'm chosen or not. But I humbly ask for your vote, and want to let you guys all know that, in voting for me, you're voting for somebody who's dedicated to the cause, that's going to put time and effort and energy into making sure that we continue to be a great place to live, and that we continue to move things forward the right way. So thank you guys for your consideration.
I want to thank all of the candidates today that participated, as well as the McFarland Communication and Technology Department, and it has been an honor to serve as the moderator for this forum. Thank you to everyone who attended today and was able to participate through our online services. Beginning at 2 p.m., tune into the School Board Candidate Forum. It'll be co-hosted by the McFarland Communications and Technology Department and the McFarland Federation of Teachers. You can watch it right here on the McFarland cable channel. Remember, the spring elections are on April 6th from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. But you may begin to vote absentee by mail starting on Thursday, March 18th. In-person absentee voting is Tuesday, March 30th through Friday, April 2nd. The village is strongly recommending and encouraging voters to exercise their right to receive an absentee ballot via mail. Visit myvote.wi.gov. You can also visit the village website or call the village administrative offices for additional information. One final announcement. We're asking the McFarland residents to join the village on Thursday, March 18th at 7 p.m. for the virtual Police Chief Community Panel. This event will take place via Zoom, and it is an opportunity for residents to get to know more about the police chief finalists and ask them questions. More information will be available at the village website at www.mcfarland.wi.us/community calendar. Again, thank you for attending this forum. Stay healthy and have a great day.